Welcome back, creators. So I've seen some smokeless fire pits on the internet, but there's been a little caveat in them that I don't really like. So in this video, I'm going to go over that. I'm also going to go over my own personal design. We're going to do a little bit of testing, see if it works or not, because honestly, I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to have to give it a try. All right, let's get to it. All right, so before we get into designing one, we got to talk about what makes it a smokeless fire, or what bothers us about a smoking fire. There's kind of two subjects there, and only one of them is usually covered. So let's go over the first one. So normally, people take and address this by adding air to the fire. See, normally, a fire ring consists of just a ring that doesn't have a whole lot of airflow. By most designs, they are getting better, but there'd be a lack of oxygen. Lack of oxygen makes wood smoke. When wood smokes, we have an issue with it. We don't like to be around it. So the first problem with the design is that we need to get oxygen to there. Most people solve this two ways. One, they'll start off by taking their fire ring and they'll put a bunch of holes in it, all over. Maybe they'll do it on the sides. Maybe they'll find a way to tunnel underneath, get the air from somewhere else, which is fine and dandy. That reduces the smoke. The next thing they'll do is sometimes they'll make them taller. They won't actually make them a fire ring. They make them more like a fire barrel, which isn't really that conducive for parties. So there's two ways of fixing it. So now that added oxygen to it, now you have a very good, clean burning fire. However, a lot of times on bonfires, that's not lasting. You don't want it just cranking away at max BTUs. And you want to be able to throw some logs on it, sit around, and there's going to end up to be some smoke. So let's talk about the second part. Why does that fire follow you? See, a lot of people don't realize that. And not necessarily the fire, I mean more the smoke. So here's the secret to it. If you're taking, and if you're standing around a fire, and you stand here, what we got to remember is that all around this fire, cold air is pushing the hot air up. Okay? Let's pretend you're not there for a second. So it would come from all directions. It would push it up in the center, and you'd have a nice peak. It would be a good little burning fire just like this. Okay? I didn't plan this to be an art lesson. So that would work good. But you're standing there. So now what that does is it impedes the air from pushing. So there's no longer this air able to push through you. You're a solid object. So now why is that important? Well, that created an imbalance. Now that we don't have the air pushing against you here, this air is going to act more on it, and it's going to push it over. So what you're going to have is you standing here, and now this air can push the fire more at you, and particularly the smoke, and now it wants to almost stick to you. And that's why if you look at a lot of survivalists, when they go to build a fire, they'll have them laying on their bedroll, and then they'll try to find a big rock to put the fire in between. Now it's able to go like this. However, the radiant heat can still get to you. So how can we solve this? Well, if we didn't have the air coming from here, that is one way. So like with these designs where it comes straight out of the bottom, if that's the only way it's coming up, but you're still going to have an effect if you're standing up tall. So I came up with a kind of a crazy idea. What if that effect was turned? So you didn't block the air because the air that you were blocking was actually feeding the fire over here. And the air that was being received was coming from over here. Also, with that, maybe we could make it into a vortex or a tornado, which might help stabilize it. So I propose that we add a whole bunch of things to make that fire turn, and now the air that you are blocking is going to be offset. That'll help with a couple people. Obviously, if you have like 10 by it, it's not going to work. But I don't know. Let's give it a try. All right, let's get to it. A little bit with the plasma cutter, a little bit with the angle grinder, a little bit with that, kind of all over the place, but got all this cut out and I got a bunch of these made. I told you I was going to make this out of junk and make it look like junk, so we're on a good start, nothing straight. All right, so next thing is we got to figure out the layout. For that, I have a couple of these rings that were at this one shop, and they were at this one shop, and they were supposed to be for some big laundry hoops, and they were fails, I guess. But I got them, and they're about the right size. So I got to work on my arrangement now. Figure out how many I want, how I want them. All right, so now I got to take and rearrange these so that way they're even and at the angle I want. I'm going to go on the inside of this rim, and this thing isn't perfectly flat, but that's okay. I'm going to work with it. Floor is pretty good and flat, so we'll probably use that as a reference. And I might check between the two rings, see which one's flatter. So now you can see where I'm going with this. I'm going to fiddle with this a little bit and we'll come back. Well, I got annoyed fast with having to redo that and not knowing exactly if it was exact. So I went through the painstaking process of measuring the whole inner diameter out, dividing it out, and then measuring it. Thankfully, I only had to do that like 11 times. Yeah, use a string for the inside for wrapping it. And then I measured the string. All right, so I'll get these put on where they're supposed to go and get a look at it. So the next challenge I have with these is I want to get them as evenly spaced as I can, but these are actually bent a little bit differently. Not all of them are exactly the same. You can see that one's got a flat spot right there. I'm going to get it the best I can where I'm happy with it. I'm not trying to reach perfection. I just want to see if this concept will work. And it's going to be a fire pit. The heat's going to bend and warp this stuff anyways. But it's kind of looking cool. I think what I might do is I actually might mark a couple circles on the ground. How to do that, I'm not sure. So we're going to need to mix and match these or something to figure it out, or bend it. All right, so we tried them in more. I wasn't quite sure on the airflow, so then we tried looking at them out more, and then we decided ultimately to go right in between. I think I'm going to really like this. Obviously, as we weld these, we're going to have to do a little tweaking, and then probably a little more when I go to put the top ring on, but we'll see. So the problem I knew we were going to come across right away is this being a reject, it's really kittywampus. And the question is, how do I want to attach it so that way it somewhat looks reasonable and functions. This whole thing, by the way, might get spun upside down. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, so now we're going to do some figuring. Life brought up a good point. We should take and flip this upside down, and then we're going to actually put the ring on the outside, and that'll make it flush just like the bottom. And then we can decide which side we like better. Or maybe go by which side of the hemisphere we're on. Which way do tornadoes turn here, you know, type of thing. So I'm going to weld these on better so we can actually flip it. Alright, so now we got that done. Considering other things like putting a bottom in here, I realized that I think it would be better if I don't. If I want to move this, I'll pick it up, move it, and take and shovel it. Part of that is the fact that I've dealt with a lot of fire pits in the past, and when they have a bottom, they rust out, they tend to make a whole bunch of noise, and they hold water. It just doesn't seem to be a good day versus just having it on the ground. The other thing is like I need to make this mobile for where I'm at, movable, and for that, I thought about putting a tire and like a couple handles and doing like a wheelbarrow situation. I think instead I'm just going to put a handle on each side, and I need to hold these relatively well. And I thought about a couple different ways of doing that, and I think I'm just going to take and weld pieces to go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, right in the center. They might bend a little bit with the heat this way, but that should be all right. All right, let's do that, and then we can give it a test, see if this thing works. Oh, I almost forgot. For handles, I decided I'm just going to take and use recycled pieces from these chairs, because I got some of these that are fails, and I got extra pieces. So I'm just going to use those. Actually, I might just use rebar to go around here, too. Let's see if I can bend a piece. Now I just got to work on making it round, not oblong. Metal hot glue gun. I'll be due on both sides. All right, last things last, I'm going to take and do a bunch of it with this, mainly the outside. Real quick, the Tober here says please share this with someone. All right, back to it. All right, so no idea if this is going to work or not. All right, so I don't know how well a camera is going to pick this up, but there is definitely a spinning going on. You can see the flames closer over here are licking this way, and the ones in the back are licking that way. It's definitely spinning. Yeah. The flames are really in the center, which tells you it's kind of being like pulled together. Let's give it a little coffee and see what happens. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm going to be using this thing regardless because it just looks cool. I hope I inspired you, and till next time, keep creating.